Hi, my name is Chris, and today I'd like to talk about one of the most fundamental ideas in the Course of Miracles, which is that we are attached to guilt. This is very hard to understand, if not impossible to understand, especially because at many times when we're suffering the most, when we're feeling angry or scared or overwhelmed, it seems to us the last thing we want is guilt, or the world that guilt is showing us. We feel, if anything, repulsed by that world, not attracted to it. And so it's very hard for us to understand how it's possible that we could have a remaining attraction to guilt that is keeping us involved with it when every fiber of our being seems to be telling us to run from it. The answer is simple. When we're in guilt, we're in a state of confusion. Our mind sees one level of emotion, but not the levels of thought and emotion that fall below it. In other words, just like heavy obscuring clouds can block out the sun, our fear can block out our vision of the attachment that we have to guilt. Thus, it seems to us as if that attachment does not exist. So essentially, what we need to do is, rather than, while in a state of guilt consciousness, trying to figure out the nature of our attachment and see that attachment as it is, we need to recognize that guilt is a state of consciousness that needs to be escaped. Once we escape it, then we can look back and understand the nature of our attachment to guilt. It's like being in a burning house. We need to get out immediately. Now, the one fundamental thing that we can do to bring ourselves into a state of peace is to rid ourselves of all attack thoughts. Attack thoughts are the very most fundamental nature of our involvement with guilt. Without attack thoughts, or the desire to attack, there's absolutely nothing keeping us in guilt. Now, our conscious mind can be at peace, and we can be free from both attack thoughts and defensive thoughts. But our subconscious mind will remain involved with guilt, and this is what will generate the image of the physical world. However, our mind will be at peace, at least at the conscious level, to a certain extent, and this will allow healing to occur, meaning the longer we stay in this peaceful state of consciousness, the more we will be healed. And the more we are healed, the more we will be in the process of overcoming our attachment to guilt and relieving ourselves of the burden of being involved with guilt at all. It's tempting for us to try to understand guilt from the inside out, but guilt unfortunately comes with the extra burden of confusion. When your mind is guilty, you are confused. Therefore, it's very important to use a simple approach to get out of guilt, because the more complex your approach is, the more likely you are to become confused and upset and not be able to go through with it. The one fundamental thing that makes the state of peace of mind happen is freedom from attack thoughts. If we can achieve a peaceful state of consciousness free from attack and defense, then guilt falls away at the conscious level and we experience healing. We also then, in this state of consciousness where we are at peace, can consciously look at our attachment to guilt and understand that it is there, hidden underneath all the subtext, underneath all the other levels of things that are going on with our guilt in terms of how it is expressed. Guilt wears not just one mask, but many levels of masks. And each one of those masks is, in effect, an attempt to separate ourselves from ourselves. Guilt is fundamentally about separation, not just between ourselves and others, but between ourself and ourself. It is self-alienation. It is neurosis. It is psychosis. It is depression. It is anxiety. It is everything that separates the self from its own wholeness. For this reason, it's very important for us to know that we must escape guilt in order to be able to look back and understand our attachment to it. Understanding would seem to be the first and most important element of getting out of guilt. But the only thing you really need to understand is that you don't want guilt. If you know that you don't want guilt, then everything springs forth from that one state of knowledge. And the only thing that you need to do to achieve freedom from guilt is to stop having attack thoughts. And to do that, you must stop wanting to attack others. So, in summary, I would like to encourage everyone to think about their fundamental attachment to guilt, but don't do it from the guilt state of consciousness. Achieve a peaceful state of consciousness first by giving up attack thoughts and by giving up your desire to attack. Once you know that you've achieved a state of peace, you will feel it and understand without a doubt that you've achieved it. No one and nothing outside of yourself will be necessary to validate it. You will know that you've achieved it, and for whatever length of time that you possess it, you will be healing yourself and the whole world. Additionally, during these periods of time when you're at peace, you'll be able to look at your attachment to guilt objectively and honestly and understand that there is an underlying fragment of attachment that remains. Know that no matter what happens, no matter what ups and downs you go through, you're close to the end. You're close to being free from guilt. Obviously, you've made it this far that you can see through guilt and understand that it is not the reality that you want to buy into. You've seen a great deal about the truth of guilt, and you know that it's undesirable. All that's left is to convince yourself in your heart of hearts that there is absolutely nothing in guilt that you want. Once you possess this understanding, then peace will be yours all the time, and nothing and no one will be able to pull it away from you. When you're in a state of peace, you will know that you are safe and well, and furthermore, you will not feel separated from others or from the fundamental nature of reality which is still there supporting you. You don't need faith, because your faith will simply be the understanding that you possess naturally in being in a state of peace, where you will see the connection between everything. However, if your conscious mind is in a state of guilt, you will see only separation, fear and doubt, abandonment, and other observations which will lead you to the false conclusion that you're in terrible danger and the only hope is self-destruction. The number one thing to remember is that guilt is showing you a false world. You do not want guilt, so eliminate it by eliminating attack thoughts. Without the desire to attack others, guilt has no fuel and cannot run, and in the state of peace, all insight is yours to have freely. Good luck and best wishes.